Hello, and welcome to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and today we are once again taming time signatures. Specifically, we're going to look at alternating time signatures today. And for this, I'm going to use one of the most famous examples of this, at least to me, is Leonard Bernstein's America from West Side Story. So I've got my file here set up, and I've got the beginning of it entered. And you'll notice I've just put everything in 6/8 for now. And obviously, what this is 6834 6834, and the time signature from the published version that I have is 68 plus 34 in just right here, and then he doesn't list every time signature after that, right? So how would we go about doing this? Well, it's not so bad. The first thing we're going to want to do is go into the time signature tool and double click this first measure. Now this is actually a 6/8 measure, so this part is correct. And then we're going to choose more options, but we're going to use a different time signature for display, and we're going to use a composite time signature. And in this case, we're going to want to do 6, 8, and 3, 4. And of course, you don't need to worry about the flag beaming here in this section of the time signature dialog box, because this is just for show. This is just ignore this. This is what we're concerned about, right? And then we click OK. And now we've got our 6/8 plus 3/4. Now this bar, however, is still 6/8, but we need this to be 3/4, right? So it's simple enough. Just change this to 3, 4. More options, and make sure that the 6/8 plus 3/4 is still showing. And again, because this is repeating from the last one, it will not redisplay, right? So it doesn't look like anything happened, but this is actually a 3/4 measure. And one thing I'm going to show you about this is that, see, in the 6/8 version, obviously this left hand is beamed to 6/8, right? So if I were to go back and re-enter this, right, now it will beam as 3/4 correctly. However, I'm going to give you a little bonus tip here, because the edition that I have actually beams all 6 of these together like that. Okay, and there is an easy way to do this, or a way to help you out with the time signature, so you don't have to constantly connect those beams. So you can do 3/4 as 3 individual quarter notes, but you can also do 3/4 as 1 dotted half note. All right, and we get 3/4, and of course this more options thing is still showing, so it's not going to give us a different meter. And now that I've got this type of 3/4, when I enter those eighth notes again, they will all beam together. That's handy, little bonus tip for you. All right, and that's it. I mean, if that's what you wanted. Oh, yeah, that's not it, right? Because now you're going to say, well, I've got these 2 bars set up, but now the rest of it is 3/4 because that's the last one I put in, right? And so am I going to have to go and do that every other bar? No, not exactly, because we can use the filter. If we've got a stack selection made, we edit filter. Oh, I've already got it set up, but let's say it was set up to all. Choose none, and we're going to find time signature. That's the only thing we're going to copy, right? Click OK, and in this case, we're going to copy those 2 bars, and I'm going to go ahead and use the paste multiple function, and we can paste horizontally to the end of the score. All right, and now every other bar in the score is 6834 6834, right? We've got 6/8 there, we've got 3/4 there, etc. 6/8 3/4. All right, pretty easy, and that's how you would do that. Now, the one thing I'm going to point out is that this gives you 6/8 with a plus sign 3/4. In the edition that I have, and I believe in most editions of this song, he actually writes 6/8 parentheses 3/4 and without a plus sign. All right. Neither is correct or incorrect. I guess it's just a matter of choice. But let's say you chose to do it the other way with the parentheses. So how would we do that? Well, this is where it gets a little bit complicated here, because Finale, if you remember from one of the other time signature lessons, you know that you can change the time signature plus character to something else. But the problem is you can't change it to 2 other things. You can only change it to one thing. So even if you could change it to a left parentheses, you're still stuck with a right parentheses. And it's a little bit wonky getting a left parentheses in there anyway. So here's the workaround for that. So in the document options time signature, I'm going to choose a composite time signature plus character that's not a plus. In fact, I'm going to choose one that's not anything. And in the Maestro font, we're going to go up and find slot number 202. These little small numbers in the upper left-hand corner. It looks empty, but it's actually a space. And select that. Don't use any of the other blank ones because these are actually blank and your time signatures will squeeze together, and that's not what you want. So make sure you find number 202 in the Maestro font set and select, and of course do the same thing for the parts. Find 202, there it is. All right, and apply, and you'll notice right away that the plus sign goes away. So now we have a blank space there, okay? So we have a little bit of a canvas to work with. The way to do the parentheses is with a measure expression. At least that's the best way I believe to do it. And I'm going to show you this step by step. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to create a new category for this, and I'll show you why in a second. So when you do create new categories, you have the options of duplicating one of the old categories, which is what you should do. And you may notice that some of the categories, tempo marks and tempo alterations, for example, have this option to use a score list, but others do not, all right? We definitely want to use one with a score list. So for my purposes, I'm going to duplicate the rehearsal marks because that uses a score list, all right? So we'll just choose duplicate. I'm going to call this time signatures parentheses. Oops. Parentheses, all right? All right, and then I'm going to choose a different font. I think the best thing to use for these parentheses around these time signatures is a very narrow font, and most computers should come with something called Arial font, and I believe there should be an Arial narrow font, which is, personally, I think the best for this. So I'm going to choose Arial narrow. We don't want it fixed. I happen to know that the size we need is 24. We don't want it bold, okay? So now we've got the text correct. Now we're going to deal with the positioning, and when we deal with positioning, as we'll get into with the in the other tutorials about the measure expression tool, we want to well, in this instance I'm going to left align it, but we always want to attach it to something that's closest to where we want it to go. In this case, we do have the option of attaching it to the start of the time signature, and that's pretty close. So no matter what happens, whether the key signature changes and pushes the time signature to the right, it will always be in relation to that time signature, right? And I've already done some trial and error, and I know that the additional offset I need here is going to be 0.14. I'm in inches. And same thing on the vertical side. We're going to choose staff reference line because that staff line is never going to move no matter what we do. And I happen to know that the positioning I need here is negative 0.25, okay? You can just trust me. And the last thing we're going to do in this, while I'm editing this category, is I'm going to choose a new score list. Let's choose score list 2. I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to call it all staffs. And then we're going to go through and check everything. And actually, all we need to do is check all staffs, and score in part, okay? Because basically, we want that measure expression to exist on every single staff because that's where the time signatures exist. And we click OK. Now we've created our new category called time signatures parentheses. Okay, and it's empty because we have nothing in there. So we just create a time signature, and I happen to know that all we need to do is left parentheses, 2 spaces, right parentheses, and OK, and then assign. And voila, there it is. You have your parentheses around your 3, 4. All right. Now, a couple things about that. If you're using a different font, if you're using a different music font, if you're using a different text font to create the parentheses, you may have to play around with those offset numbers. But for Maestro and for Arial Narrow, those offset numbers will work quite nicely with size 24 Arial Narrow font. All right, and of course, even at that, if I had a 12/8 here, I would need to add a little bit more offset because remember that this is attached to the bottom left corner of the time signature, so it's going to have to go a little bit to the right. And then same thing with the second number. If the second number was 12/8, for example, you're actually going to need a little bit bigger space between the 2 parentheses. So you might need 3 or maybe 4 spaces between the parentheses. Remember, I just entered 2. All right. So that's how you do that. And there's some other neat things you can do once you have this set up like this. There's some other neat things you can do if you want. Like there's other options for this. So if you wanted to create a something that looks like that, like a vertical line, that's just the shift / key, and we can do something like that, right? Now the offset's not quite, I mean, it's pretty close, but you can You can set your offset a little bit further so that it's better centered, if you so want. You can also do a slash, although I happen to know ahead of time that the slash needs to be bigger. So we'll just change the font size to 32. And that should do it, but the positioning is going to be off. So again, you can just change your offsets, or I'm just manually moving it for now. But if you change your offsets, you never have to manually move it again. It'll be right the first time. All right. And then one other thing about this, if per se you have a time signature that has the parentheses around it, like so, and later on in the piece you've changed to a different section and you change to a different meter, and you actually do want that plus sign, you can't have both in the same file, because again, in the document options, right, composite time signature plus, once you set that to something, it's going to be set. If you set that back to the plus sign, it's going to put that plus sign back here, and you're going to have a plus and a parentheses around your 3-4, which is not what you want, right? So if you have done something like this and are using an expression to do this, and you also want the plus, you're going to have to make the plus sign as an expression as well. And the quick way to do this, I will show you real quick, is, we know that the Maestro font 24 is what we want. So, right, so we're going to have to reset our font to Maestro. Where is it? So many fonts. Maestro. I know that it's 24, size 24. And what you don't know, and I'm telling you right now, is that the key for this is Shift Option I, and that will give you your plus sign. And then click OK. And of course, you're going to have to go ahead and edit the positioning. And I think I've got this marked out for you, right? Let's see. Use time signature category. Nope, we're going to uncheck that because we're going to make it unique. And the horizontal is 0.13. And the vertical is negative 0.17. All right, and that should give us the plus sign in the correct spot. Yes, it does. There you go. All right. So again, if you wanted to have the parentheses and the plus sign somewhere else in the file, you're going to have to do something like that as well. All right. And so that's it. That's how you would do a alternating time signatures in several different ways. And let me know if you have any questions about that. Hopefully I explained it fairly well. And I think that's it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.